Welcome to Earth Discussions. I'm your host, Mitchell. Let's dive straight into it. Artificial intelligence is our topic today. Let's watch a video first of Elon Musk's Neuralink company of a monkey playing mind pong. So yeah, let's dive straight into it.
This is Pager. He's a 9-year-old macaque who had a Neuralink placed in each side of his brain about 6 weeks ago. If you look carefully, you can see that the fur on his head hasn't quite fully grown back yet. He's learned to interact with a computer for a tasty banana smoothie delivered through a straw. We can interact with the Neuralinks simply by pairing them to an iPhone, just as you might pair your phone to a Bluetooth speaker. The links record from more than 2,000 electrodes implanted in the regions of Pager's motor cortex that coordinate hand and arm movements. Neurons in this region modulate their activity with intended hand movement. For example, some might become more active when he moves his hand up, and others when he moves it to the right. By recording from many neurons and feeding their activity into a decoder algorithm, we are able to predict Pager's intended hand movements in real time. First, we calibrate the decoder by recording neural activity as Pager uses the joystick to move a cursor to targets presented on the screen. As he's playing this game, we are wirelessly streaming in real time the firing rates from thousands of neurons to a computer. Using these data, we calibrate the decoder by mathematically modeling the relationship between patterns of neural activity and the different joystick movements they produce. After only a few minutes of calibration, we can use the output from the decoder to move the cursor instead of the joystick. Pager still moves the joystick out of habit, but as you can see, it's unplugged. He's controlling the cursor entirely with decoded neural activity. Our goal is to enable a person with paralysis to use a computer or phone with their brain activity alone. Because they wouldn't be able to move a joystick, they would calibrate the decoder by imagining hand movements to targets. One of the things the Neuralinks allow Pager to do is to play his favorite video game, Pong. To control his paddle on the right side of the screen, Pager simply thinks about moving his hand up or down. We remove the joystick altogether. Now that he's up to speed, let's increase the difficulty and see how well Pager can play with the Neuralink. As you can see, Pager is amazingly good at mind pong. He's focused, and he's playing entirely of his own volition. It's not magic. The reason Neuralink works is because it's recording and decoding electrical signals from the brain. Great game, Pager. And what better reward for a monkey than a banana? We still have challenges spanning many fields of engineering. So if you're good at solving hard problems and want to change people's lives, even if you've never worked with the brain before, we would love to hear from you.
That's when you got to stop to realize that we're in the future right now, guys. They've put this same Neuralink into pigs, many other animals. The future is now. Progression in technology in the last 5-10 years has been mind blowing. A lot of it's been behind the scenes, and still a lot of it is behind the scenes that people don't even know about. And that this is going to change the world in good ways. It can. Technology can be used in better ways than it's intended. Like Elon Musk in other videos, you'll see that he he's fearful of AI, you can tell, and it scares him more than nuclear weapons. Um, that's a big thing to say, but a lot of people don't understand AI um, to the level he does, and we all have to be aware of this, guys, because it's just around the corner, and we have to be prepared. Let's dive into some more videos. Here's one from David Icke. Bit about AI, a bit about life, and just a very uplifting video.
If something comes out of nowhere and it's suddenly everywhere, is the agenda. They want to create a hive human mind where basically you're just a computer terminal with no real individuality. I refuse to acquiesce to any of the diktats.
You think more people should refuse to do it? Because otherwise, how will we ever make a change? It can't just be you.
If one person does something, they can pick them off. But when very large numbers of people do it together, you see where the real power is. It's not with these people in government and the psychopaths behind it. It's a matter of doing it in numbers. And to start that rolling, someone's got to start it, because then we'll see where the power is. And it's not with the authorities. People are frightened of authority. They're frightened of challenging authority and not obeying authority, because that's what we're programmed purposely to do. You come out of the womb and very soon you're sitting at a desk and an authority figure is telling you what you can do and can't do, when you can eat, when you can talk, when you can go to the toilet, and all these other things that happen once you enter the school system. And then there are punishments and rewards for obeying.
That's it, guys. We all have to band together, and we all have to fight back, because this is the time. The time is now. We have to say no, especially if these lockdowns crack down in New South Wales again, which don't be surprised if they do in Australia, where I live at the moment. We all have to say no at some point. And I will not be putting on no face diaper for no one. Let's continue.
Obeying authority or not obeying authority all the way through your formative years, because they are preparing you for life to be acquiescent to authority and to fear challenging authority. There's no need to fight the government or fight the cult behind government. There's no need to go on protests and wave banners. No need for any of that. You just need to say, no, I'm not doing it. We're not doing it. And then you'll see where the real power is, because you'll realize that enforcing it without our acquiescence is impossible. Now is the time to say no. And that's all it takes. No. If the 1% was basically going to get control, it had to rebrand itself as the supporters of the other 99%. And you do that via the left, not the right, from the perception of the population. And so now you've got the left standing for everything the old left didn't. And you've got the right pushing for protecting civil liberties and freedom of speech. And if you are going to move into a world, which is what they plan, of the end of countries, the end of nations, then your conservatives with a small c, they are much likely or more likely to want to conserve, to want to protect the status quo. protect the society, we shouldn't get pulled into the idea that we are dealing with an all-powerful force. That's what they want us to believe. We're not. We're dealing with the equivalent of frightened little boys and girls in short trousers who know that they can only survive and they can only continue to advance their agenda, indeed survive any agenda, if they keep the population in ignorance that there is an agenda and that there is a force behind the direction of human society, and B, they keep the target population in a sense of powerlessness and in a sense of little me, what can I do? And they have to hold those two things, because if they don't, the game's over. Like I say, the game's over if enough people just say, no, we're not doing it. No, we're not doing it. It's over. That's how tenuous this cult is in its holding on to power. And it knows it. It knows that its power and its agenda can fall in a ridiculously short time if the perceptions of humanity change and if there's any free flow of information to expose and unravel its.
Just stop it there for a bit. That's exactly right. We have to change the perception of people we know, our family, our friends, because things are about to change, guys. And we all have to be together. We are stronger together than alone. Just stop it there for a bit and come back to that video. And, dive into some more Neuralink. This is about the procedure that how a robot would be putting the Neuralink threads into your skull the same way that the monkey had it. So let's watch that now.
Insert them into the brain. So the implant is kind of like this little puck of the secret sauce active electronics, and the electrodes are these tiny little flexible threads that each at the very end have multiple little electrodes that if you get those electrodes next to a neuron, they can record what that neuron is doing. The nature of the device that we're implanting and the way that we're implanting it allows for minimal reaction of the brain tissue to our device to increase the lifetime. In order to do that, the devices are extremely fragile. The threads that we insert that contain the electrodes are tiny, sort of on the order like 50 microns wide, 5 microns thick, 20 millimeters long. And so if you take one of them and sort of toss it into the air, it'll sort of float up like a piece of hair. And those tiny little flexible hairs are too small for a human to handle, even like with tweezers, and that's where the robot comes in. Revision and software, essentially high reliability software, is really important. We've gone from not really being able to track the moving brain, which is critical for humans because the human brain moves a lot, to having this OCT-based system that essentially gives us this 21 hertz real-time view of a 3D volume of the brain that we're looking at. They're trying to do these like very fine computer vision tasks and movement tasks to grab these threads. It's like an extremely hard engineering problem. I would say the next big goal for the robot would be to make it so that there's minimal neurosurgeon interface, that a neurosurgeon can walk in and talk to the patient, make them feel comfortable about the procedure, walk them through exactly what's going to happen, and essentially click go. And the robot will be able to figure out exactly what the specific topography of the patient will be, target the areas, and take the surgery from the patient coming in and sitting down to them walking out of the door that same day. Make this so automated and safe and fast that like anyone can get it. Even the idea of really fast keyboard and mouse for myself that I don't need to use my hands for is like super alluring. I'm excited for the robot to help a human patient restore someone's motor function that they lost. That would be super cool. Over the last 3 years, Neuralink has felt like it has grown from a garage project into a real product. Not only do you get to work on robots, but you also get to interact with other people who don't typically use robots. I knew nothing about neurosurgery before going to Neuralink. I can come in as a robotics expert and know that there are neurosurgeons here, neuroscientists here who essentially can act as my like knowledge base for neurosurgery and neuroscience. That's what I think it's the place to be.
Definitely good aspects about it if we use it in the right way. But if it goes too far, that's when it becomes a problem. The future is now. Crazy stuff, guys. If you haven't heard of this or been up to date, yeah, they've been working on this for a while now. Elon Musk has so many projects going at once. Yeah, be prepared. That's all I have to say. Just going to take a short break now, and we'll be back with you shortly. And we're back. Back now. Welcome back. Now we'll be diving into a video from Elon Musk talking about artificial intelligence. Let's go straight into that now.
The least scary future I can think of is one where we've at least democratized AI. One company, a small group of people, managed to develop godlike digital superintelligence that could take over the world. At least when there's an evil dictator, that human is going to die. But for an AI, there would be no death. It would live forever. And you'd have an immortal dictator from which we'd never escape.
Do you hear that, folks? An immortal dictator. Scary thought. Very scary. That's why they throw Matrix straight on. One of my favorite movies, and I always thought there was a lot of hidden messages in it. And there has been proven to be. Just listen to this.
In the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI, artificial intelligence, a singular consciousness that spawned an entire race of machines. We don't know who struck first, us or them. We know that it was us that spoke to the sky.
Streets. So like, what are you talking about? Man, we want to make sure that we don't have killer robots going down the street. Once they're going down the street, it is too late. Google acquired DeepMind several years ago. DeepMind operates as a semi-independent subsidiary of Google. The thing that makes DeepMind unique is that DeepMind is absolutely focused on creating digital superintelligence, an AI that is vastly smarter than any human on Earth and ultimately smarter than all humans on Earth combined.
This is from the DeepMind reinforcement learning system. Basically wakes up like a newborn baby and is shown the screen of an Atari video game and then has to learn to play the video game. It knows nothing about objects, about motion, about time. It only knows that there's an image on the screen and there's a score. So if your baby woke up the day it was born and by late afternoon was playing 40 different Atari video games at a superhuman level, you would be terrified. You would say, my baby is possessed, send it back.
The DeepMind system can win at any game. It can already beat all the original Atari games. It is superhuman. It plays the games at super speed, less than a minute. DeepMind's AI has administrator level access to Google's servers to optimize energy usage at the data centers. However, this could be an unintentional Trojan horse. DeepMind has to have complete control of the data centers. So with a little software update, that AI could take complete control of the whole Google system.
Very scary thought, that is. You only have one of the guys like Elon Musk talking about this. The rest of them obviously don't talk about it, staying silent, just think, oh, that'll never happen. Listen, look at his face. Let's continue.
Which means they can do anything. They can look at all your data, you can do anything. We're rapidly headed towards digital superintelligence that far exceeds anything in the future. It's pretty obvious.
Talking about your time allocation, I think one of the things we spend an awful lot of time thinking about, I know, is artificial intelligence. It's something that you and I have a shared interest, and it's something that our audience is interested in as well. The question here is, a lot of experts in AI don't share the same level of concern that you do about the data.
Fools.
What's
Famous last words.
what specifically do you believe that they don't?
Well, the biggest issue I see with so-called AI experts is that they think they know more than they do. And they think they're smarter than they actually are. In general, we are all much smarter than we think we are, but much less smart, dumber than we think we are, by a lot. So this tends to plague smart people. They just can't. They define themselves by their intelligence, and they don't like the idea that the machine could be way smarter than them, so they discount the idea, which is fundamentally flawed. It's the wishful thinking kind of situation. I'm really quite close to, very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows, and the rate of improvement is exponential. You can see this in things like AlphaGo, which went from, in the span of maybe 6 to 9 months, it went from being unable to beat even a reasonably good Go player, then beating the European world champion who was ranked 600, then beating Lisa Dole 4-5, been the world champion for many years, then beating the current world champion, then beating everyone offline simultaneously. Then there was AlphaZero, which crushed AlphaGo 100-0. And AlphaZero just learned by playing itself. And
That's going to be smarter than us. It's eventually hard thing to grasp, guys. Our perception's got to change. Even, I've been listening to a few channelers talk about other dimensions and other life forms out there. Even one, for example, in the Andromedan galaxy, and Tolik, his name is, talks about how they say to him they're about 50,000 years ahead of us with their technology, and more spiritually, way more spiritually advanced as well. And even with this AI that we are creating ourselves, will be smarter than us. We are a smart race, and we have invented some incredible things. But if these things are true, that there are other races out there like that, which is hard not to be the case because of how big this universe is, and we just have no understanding of the different types of life forms that are out there. And I will dive into a few videos from Tolik himself, and but be sure to look him up, and I'll put a link in the description even. Let's keep on going with this video.
It can play basically any game that you put the rules in for. If you whatever rules you give it, just literally read the rules, play the game, and you superhuman. Any game. Nobody expected that rate of improvement. If you ask those same experts who think AI is not progressing at the rate that I'm saying, I think you will find that their predictions for things like Go and other AI advancements have the batting average is quite weak. It's not good. We'll see this also with self-driving. I think probably by end of next year, self-driving will encompass essentially all modes of driving and be at least 100 to 200% safer than a person by the end of next year. We're talking.
Imagine in the end of 10 years, guys, we'll be having the kids in that time saying, "Oh, it's crazy, you actually used to drive these cars." It'll be a thing of the past.
Maybe 18 months from now. NHTSA does a study on Tesla's Autopilot version 1, which was relatively primitive, and found that it was a.
And just to add, this conference was in 2018, so they already jumped forward quite a bit. But yeah, like I said, imagine them in 10, even 20 years, how good they'll be.
A 45% reduction in highway accidents. That's despite Autopilot 1 being just version 1. Version 2, I think, will be at least 2 or 3 times better. That's the current version that's running right now. So the rate of improvement is really dramatic, but we have to figure out some way to ensure that the advent of digital superintelligence is one which is symbiotic with humanity. I think that's the single biggest existential crisis that we face, and the most pressing one. How do we do that? Well, if we take it that it's inevitable at this point, that some version of AI is coming down, how do we steer through that? Well, I'm not normally an advocate of regulation and oversight. I mean, I think one should generally err on the side of minimizing those things. But this is a case where you have a very serious danger to the public. And therefore, there needs to be a public body that has insight and then oversight on it to confirm that everyone is developing AI safely. This is extremely important. I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot. And nobody would suggest that we allow anyone to just build nuclear warheads if they want. That would be insane. And mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes. Far. So why do we have?
As I touched on before, guys, let that sink in. You got to start to understand it if you don't. Robots are taking over, guys, taking our jobs. Taking many jobs, and it's sad. Just let it sink in. We're letting these things go too far. They have to be beneficial in a way, but we still have to have something to aim for. If we don't have enough jobs, it's not going to be good for humanity.
Regulatory oversight. It's insane. It's a question we've been asking for a long time. I think it's a question that's come to the forefront of the last year. You realize that it doesn't necessarily, I think we've all been focused in on the idea of artificial superintelligence, right? Which is clearly a danger, but maybe, a little further out. What's happened over the last year is you've seen we call it artificial stupidity. We're talking about, algorithmic manipulation of social media. Like we're in it now. It's starting to happen. How do we, is it, what's the intervention at this point?
See, it was obvious they were preparing for this censorship used in these times, like we know that have been used so rapidly lately. It's very detrimental to freedom of speech. We have to stand up, guys.
I'm not really all that worried about the short-term stuff. The things that are, I'm not, like narrow AI is not a species level risk. It will result in dislocation, in lost jobs and, the sort of better weaponry and that kind of thing. But it is not a fundamental species level risk, whereas digital superintelligence is. So it's really all about laying the groundwork to ensure that if humanity collectively decides that creating digital superintelligence is the right move, then we should do so very, very carefully. Very, very carefully. This is the most important thing that we could possibly do. AI risk.
You can just see it in his face, the fear of artificial intelligence. We all have to be aware of it. We have to all talk about it, like I've said. Make yourself familiar with the dangers. But a lot of people say, oh, I can't do anything about it. But we can, guys. We all band together and make these decisions more for our future.
Is that I guess it's the sort of a benign AI, and that we're able to achieve a symbiosis with that AI. Ideally, the AI, for somebody who I can't remember his name, but had a good suggestion for what the optimization of the AI should be. What's its utility function? You have to be careful about this because you say maximize happiness, and the AI concludes that happiness is a function of dopamine and serotonin. So it captures all humans and jacks your brain into lots of dopamine and serotonin. Like, okay, it's not what we meant. It sounds pretty good though. I love it. I like the message of like the AI should try to maximize the.
See how he even said there, capture all humans, like, because he knows that probably even the police force in the future will be robots. And you will not want that. RoboCop, the movie, they've all showed us these things before. You're either cyborgs or there's probably robots ready to go. Soldiers. Scary thoughts, guys. Run by an artificial intelligence. Keeps on learning every day.
Freedom of action of humanity. Maximize the freedom of action. Maximize freedom, essentially.
That's what's happening right now. It's just unbelievable. Some of the things in this speech, it's like he knew it was coming. This was before it all. As I said, he's probably a part of it all, but could be a robot even himself, but you have to be aware of it, guys.
I like that definition. But we do want a close coupling between collective human intelligence and digital intelligence. Neuralink is trying to help in that regard by creating an interface between a high bandwidth interface between AI and human brain. And we're already a cyborg in the sense that your phone and your computer are kind of an extension of you. It's low bandwidth input output. Exactly, it's just low bandwidth, particularly output. I mean, 2 thumbs basically. So how do we solve that problem? It's a bandwidth issue. I mean, we've all succumbed to it now. We're all cyborgs. We're just low efficiency cyborgs. So how do we make it better? I think we've got to build an interface. But we didn't evolve to have a communications jack. So there's got to be essentially vast numbers of tiny electrodes that are able to read write from your brain. Of course, security is pretty important in this situation, to say the least. I was gonna say, I'm not coming with. I'm keeping my brain air gapped. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people will choose to do that. But it's a bit like in Banks' neural lace. In the case of neural lace, it's sort of that's there from when you're born, or it's not a sort of backup. Sorry? It's a backup. Yeah, kind of backup. This would be there's a digital extension of you that is an AI. The AI extension of you, a tertiary layer of intelligence. So you've got your limbic system, your cortex, and the tertiary layer, which is the digital AI extension of you. And a high bandwidth connection is what achieves the type symbiosis. I think that's the best outcome. I hope so. If anybody's got better ideas, they can hear it.
This is the largest.
Crazy stuff, guys. You go over that in many ways, how we just explain the brain. So complex, the brain. So many things that we don't even understand. That's a short analogy of the brain, sorry. Yeah, let's keep watching.
Global Government Summit, we have over 139 governments here. If you want to advise government officials to be ready for the future, what is 3 things or 3 advice you'll give them?
Well, I think the first bit of advice would be to really pay close attention to the development of artificial intelligence. I think we need to just be very careful in how we adopt artificial intelligence and to make sure that
Just seems like some people even sitting there were blown away that he said that is the biggest threat. A lot of people aren't aware, and like he said, he thinks it's worse than nuclear warheads, and people have just got to think about a few movies where artificial intelligence, like Terminator, and have been implemented, and to prepare us, and like I said, and we have to share this stuff around and start to talk about it and be aware.
researchers don't get carried away. Because sometimes what happens is a scientist can get so engrossed in their work, they don't necessarily realize the ramifications of what they're doing. So I think it's important for public safety that governments keep a close eye on artificial intelligence and make sure that
it does not represent a danger to the public. But what to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic.
And that's exactly what's going to be part of the Great Reset, guys. I know it sounds great and all that. Everyone gets an income, but there will be consequences, and the reset, they say, is it going to be in 2050? If you haven't been aware about that, and I think that's a conspiracy theory. Yeah, you should definitely look that up because everyone's talking about it, and I'll make a video about that as well. But we'll keep on with this one.
Basic income. I think it's going to be necessary.
So it means that unemployed people will be paid across the globe.
Yeah.
Because there is no job, machine robot is taking over.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. That's simply the. I don't want to be clear. These are not things that I think that I wish would happen. These are simply things that I think probably will happen.
Yeah, that guys, like if you think, oh no, that won't happen. Probably will happen. It's a big statement. Seems like he's thinking about a 75% chance. And we see it more and more.
And so, if my assessment is correct, and they probably will happen, then we need to say, what are we going to do about it? And I think some kind of a universal basic income is going to be necessary. Now the output of goods and services will be extremely high. So with automation, there will come abundance. There will be almost everything will get very cheap. I think the biggest. I think we'll just end up doing universal basic income. That's going to be necessary. The harder challenge, much harder challenge, is how do people then have meaning? Like a lot of people, they derive their meaning from their employment. So if you don't have, if you're not needed, if there's not a need for your labor, how do you? What's the meaning? Do you have meaning? Do you feel useless? That's a much harder problem to deal with. And then how do we ensure that the future is going to be the future that we want, that we still like? No, I mean, I do think that there's a potential path here, which is really getting into science fiction or sort of.
Stop it there for a second. Exactly right. Like people need to have purpose. People need to have occupy their life with meaning, as well as other things. But it's all good. It's a good feeling to be able to help society or do a job that you love, or just people say, oh, I don't want to work, and yeah, that's fine. You don't have to work then, but you still need to have something if the world did go that way. And sure, there would be some things, obviously, but robotics engineering would be a great thing to get into, guys, if you're thinking about a career. Yeah, because it's going to be a very different future.
Advanced science stuff, but having some sort of merger with biological intelligence and machine intelligence. To some degree, we are already a cyborg. You think like you think of like the digital tools that you have.
Already gone into that before a bit. I think he's just going with the similar things as the other part. We might just go back into the David Icke video now and finish that off.
Ludicrous narratives that we're supposed to believe. And this is a very dangerous time for this cult. Although it seems to hold the aces, likes to think it does, it's a very dangerous time because there is the mentality which can be incredibly powerful and world changing of nothing left to lose. When you think you've got something to lose, you can acquiesce in the hope that you won't lose it. And while you feel you've got something to lose, you will acquiesce or are likely to acquiesce in the hope of protecting it. And what they're doing is they're systematically confusing young people and children about their gender, who weren't confused before and wouldn't have been confused unless this manipulation to confusion had been implemented. And the process is to confuse gender on the road to fusing gender to the no gender human. Why acquiescence is so important. How can a few people in this cult dictate to the lives of billions like this? Think of a pyramid. The top of the pyramid, you've got the cult. Tiny few people in relation to the population. And this pyramid, which is human society, is hierarchical. So the cult at the top of the pyramid imposes its agenda on the next level, which acquiesces to that imposition, and it itself then imposes on the next level. Now, as you come down this pyramid, you're very few steps down before you reach the point where the hierarchy doesn't even know there's a cult. Only these higher in around the spider, as I call it, levels know that there's a cult, unless you work your ass off for 30 years to uncover it. And so you then hit a level where they're not aware of where this is coming from, but the same sequence continues. So this level will impose on this level, which acquiesces to the level above and imposes on the level below. And this goes down the pyramid, imposition, acquiescence, imposition, acquiescence, imposition, acquiescence, until at the bottom of the pyramid, symbolically, you meet the mass of human society, the population. Now, if we
Just got to chime in there, guys. We know these power structures have been around for a long time. Caused so much chaos and so much divide. That's what we've got to remember. We can't be divided no more.
acquiesce to the level of the pyramid that's imposing on us, then we complete a circuit. We complete a circuit between the population and the tiny few in the cult, which has allowed the agenda of the cult to impose its will on the entire population. If we will break that circuit by not acquiescing to that level seeking to impose upon us, we break the circuit. And no longer are they the cult at the top of the pyramid imposing their will on the population, because we have broken the connection. And we've broken it simply by ceasing to acquiesce to the level of imposition imposing on us. You know there's nothing to fear, because whatever happens, whatever experiences we're having, we are always an expression, a point of attention within all that is, has been, and ever can be. And however bad the experience we're currently having, that is what we always are. All that is, has been, and ever can be. And so this does not fear. This will always do what it knows to be right, and therefore does not consider consequences for doing what it knows to be right, because it would never consider doing anything but what it knows to be right. Thus, consequences are irrelevant. This says, I'd like to do this, but what are the consequences? And you'll always find a list.
That's it, guys. We all know what's right. We all know what's been happening. Now's the time.
Of consequences why you wouldn't do it. This says, I do what I know to be right. Consequences, therefore, are not even a conversation. What we need to do is to put down the fault lines. They're ludicrous fault lines, for goodness sake. It's only a brief experience. What you are is consciousness. You are a point of attention, a unique point of attention. Celebrate that uniqueness for a start. You are a unique point of attention within an infinite flow of consciousness, having a brief, stunningly transitory experience as a human. And what is a human? It is a particular way of processing and decoding information. That's all human is. The human form processes and decodes information in a certain way that we call human. So when near-death experiences leave the body and leave that processing, decoding system that I call the biological computer, their reality dramatically changes. Stop identifying with labels. They are a brief experience. Even your name is a brief experience. You are the consciousness having the experience.
That's exactly right, guys. We're all one. We're all one consciousness. And if you don't believe that, and if you're laughing right now, or you got to dive into these things deeper. Not shy away from it. Because we all know it deep down if you search. Remember who you are. David Icke book that I do have lying around somewhere. Great book. Great man. I think he just turned 69 years of age, fighting for this information to come out for well over 30 years now, maybe even coming up to 40 or more. What a great man. And if you're not familiar with him, please look into his stuff. A lot of it's on BitChute. Sadly, a lot of people got censored last year from the internet, and it's freedom of speech going right before us. We need to fight back. We need to be well prepared. I'll leave it with that, and I'll leave it with David to finish us off, guys. See you next time.
So when someone says to you, who are you? You are all that is, has been, and ever can be, having an experience. If you meet someone and people say, who are you? They'll give you their name, they'll give you their job, they might give you their family background, their history, where they went to school. That's what they're saying they are. Who are you? But that's just what they've experienced. Who am I? All that is, has been, and ever can be, having an experience called David Icke. Very brief, very interesting. The point of attention that I am is an expression of the same consciousness that the point of attention that you are is. And the same with all of us. So racism and all these isms and all these divisions are not only undesirable, they are confirmation that those that go down that road are utterly clueless about the nature of reality and the nature of who they really are.